Alright, I'm trying something new here. Gonna be painting these Galahad breachers for Armored Clash. I'm gonna be recording it. If you're new here, well, everyone's gonna be new here since this is my first video. I am the battle reporter, and this is not a battle report. I haven't recorded any yet, but I'm hoping to once I've got these guys painted. I've already done a little bit of work on them, assembled them, primed them. I'm gonna be trying to paint them like the art, which I just remembered I've got to pull up, and I had been using my phone for that, so I got to pull it up on my iPad. But mostly it's gonna be gray for a lot of this body detail, red for, I guess, the cabin is what it's called, and the plow blade here, and black with some highlights for the treads, and then some brass and gold. Well, I don't think I have brass actually. So bronze and gold detail work. If you don't know, Armored Clash is this neat little war game made by the British company War Cradle that just came out, I think last year, which would be 2024. It's 10mm models, kind of a weird Victorian setting where a group of scientists found an alien spaceship, and now everybody has not exactly steampunk, but retro-futuristic technology. And it focuses on the great powers they amalgamated a lot of countries into blocks. This here is the British Empire, because they didn't actually have to combine anything there. They were just so big at the time. As you can see, they kind of look like the tanks that the Brits had in World War I. They've got these are the breacher variant, so on the sides they have these little flamethrowers instead of cannons, making them pretty good for clearing out buildings. Now I have to pull up my paint reference here, or my reference photo. Come on. There we go. So this probably won't show up too well, but this is what I'm going to try to aim for. Since it's historical fiction, I kind of feel like following the box art. Now, my general preference is to paint the parts that are most recessed in a model first, so that it's easier to come back later and do touch-ups. This is a little tricky because I'm not used to painting with a camera in the way. And keeping it in focus is a little tricky too. But we make do. I don't have much of a fancy setup here, just a rig for holding up my my iPhone 15. Yeah, I think it's a 15 Pro, so that it can take a video. And if you see, I'm painting over the parts I've painted brown, which I painted brown in anticipation of painting gold on top of them. And I don't really care so much about hitting them, because since they're raised, it shouldn't be that much of an issue to come back later and fix them. I think I had done the brown first because I had also done these kind of the tread areas first, which I'm going to paint brown, or well, I painted brown, and then I'm going to hit with some bronze highlights later. Because I think having gray here and gray here and gray here, it would all blend together a bit too much. So making it more like bronze or brass gives it a bit of a steampunk feel, while also keeping that contrast. Yeah, just some little painting here. The only brush-on primer I had been able to find, because I don't have an airbrush with me in my apartment, was this light gray, which is good for contrast paints, and it's nice if you want brighter colors and don't want to spend time layering things up. But it does mean you have to be pretty careful that you actually hit everything you're intending to hit. Because if you don't, there's going to be some weird exposed gray that's just not going to look right, as opposed to black, which the eye doesn't really notice that much when it's just a spot or a speck. At least in my experience. So, just getting those paints in there. Now, I use a wet palette, so I don't typically have to water these paints down too much. But sometimes I'll let that wet palette dry out a little too much, or the paint's just a little thick. I haven't shaken it well enough, and I end up with too thick a coat. But I think right here it's all right. Maybe a little too thin, if anything. Might have to come back in there with a second thin coat, as Mr. Duncan Rhodes likes to advocate for. But I'm sometimes too lazy to bother with. I think this rear part I didn't actually get with the brown. Not that it's super visible, but I know that sometimes things aren't really visible under a certain light. And then you get them on the table and you realize, ah, crap. Now that won't stop bugging me when I look at my model. So it looks like gotta do the cabin and these little details here. The cabin and these little details here and here, here, and these turrets red, and I can move on to a different color. Probably should edit this video down, speed some things up, make it snappy, make it nice. But I don't know. That takes away from painting time. And maybe there are some people in this hectic digital age that could appreciate some slow Bob Ross style painting videos. Although I've actually never really watched Bob Ross. I think my attention span is too short for something like that. But I don't know, maybe someone can use it to fall asleep too. Camera's going out of focus again. It's a little tough to keep it in camera focus when you're moving, when you want to move the model to get a better angle on it or to get a better look at it. But you also are trying to keep it in focus, and sometimes the darn camera wants to focus on my thumb with a paintbrush, it seems. Now, one thing I could really do to probably boost this video up is to get my cat in the frame and get her to boost this up the algorithm. Get a bunch of people commenting about the cat. Once again, I'm not being super clean here because this brown, I'm gonna have to paint over it. In fact, you know what? I think I let my cat out on the balcony. And haven't let her back in yet. It's been a little bit. 1 second. Hey, cat. Yeah, get back in here. There you go. Oh, there you see your tail. Yeah, she's complaining. Yeah, you complaining about the service around here. Hotel's not to your liking. Servant has been negligent. Nah, she just wanted scritches. Yeah, she's bumping all up against the table. As soon as you try to do something that requires your attention, that's when cats want it. But if I'm just sitting around, or I see the cat and I want to pet the cat, that's when the cat's not in the mood. Huh, kitty? Yeah. That was a yes. Well, you see. All right. I feel like this would be a better video to make as a stream than to make as a... Oh, for anyone who's wondering, this is Warpainter Fanatic Pure Red. Everybody was raving about the Fanatic line. I decided I'll ask for one for my birthday from friends and family. Got a nice set from my dad. And don't get me wrong, they're nice. But I think some of those influencers who were promoting it might have been influenced themselves. But hey, they're good paints. They were really hyped up when they were launched. They do give pretty vibrant colors in the end. Now, it's kind of funny when you're painting wargaming miniatures, you tend to end up painting with the same paints over and over again. Because an army will have a certain color scheme, and you won't really want to deviate from it too much. So you'll buy this big collection of paints, but honestly you don't really need the whole collection unless you decide to paint a few stranger models. Alright, I think that's the cabin painted up pretty nicely. I think I'm gonna go over some parts of this that look like they didn't get, it's hard to get the light on there, but it looks like right around here, the red paint didn't cover quite as well for whatever reason. Maybe I was just running out of pigment by then. And I was using more water. I think that looks a little better. Alright. Just gonna try and get this recessed little area red, because this is kind of a decorative plate, and those on these crown models, so the faction is called the Crown instead of I don't know, the UK or the British Empire or something like that. They decided to give them all one-word names, like the Crown or the Union or the Sultanate. Which, I mean, I think it works. Definitely makes things feel, or makes the setting feel pretty distinct from real history. Though usually when things are referred to, or when countries are referred to as the something or other, that's not really what people call it. That's kind of the it's either the formal name of it, but then it's going to be something long, like the United Kingdom of Britain, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. I don't know if that's how the official name goes, but something like that. Or it's going to be something kind of colloquial, like the Union for the U.S. during the Civil War. Or I guess the U.S. The states that didn't secede. The North. Oh yeah, one thing they did with the setting, which, no, I'm not the biggest fan of, is for the U.S., they took the Civil War and replaced it with something they called the Ore Wars, I think. Which, instead of being fought over slavery, is fought over mineral resources, as the name implies. Which I assume they did just to sidestep the whole slavery issue in general. But honestly, that just creates more questions than it silences. Like, okay, what the heck is the story of African Americans in this setting then? And I don't know, it also feels a little bit cowardly. It's not the right word, it's too strong of a word, but a little timid artistically, rather than trying to face the complexities of history straight on and the kind of morally queasy parts of it. Which is also strange because it's a setting about great powers clashing and wars of conquest. The Union is called out a number of times for kind of committing war crimes in universe. And yet, I guess since it's still tied to political contention, slavery is kind of a taboo, at least for the world builders of this setting. I don't know, kind of a shame. Alright, that's coming along. I'm really pretty excited to try out a 10mm war game. I've always been drawn a bit more to the fantastical in war games. So I wasn't really that interested in something like Flames of War. I mean, I'd play it if it was on the table. I do love history. But when it comes to painting, I don't want to paint just a whole bunch of camo all day. I might one day get into historical miniatures from eras back when things were a little more colorful. But I also like guns, and big guns, and weird guns. And giant robots with guns. So when I saw this little game, I was pretty excited for it, especially since the Americans get a train. And who doesn't love armored trains? combines some of the two greatest things for any 12-year-old boy: trains and things that can blow other stuff up. Yeah, you chewing on your catnip toy over there, Murph? Sorry, the paintbrush was in front of the camera. Now, and I said earlier, I like to work on the most recessed parts up to the most protruding parts. That's a rough thing. If I've got the paint on my palette and a certain area calls for it, I'll go ahead and paint it that. Does mean I'll need more touch-ups later. That's kind of the way of things. Alright. So that's the red done. Man, this video is already going to be 30 minutes long. I think I'll try and get this medium gray on. It's deep gray. Or actually, no. Do I want to do that, or do I want to do the treads? I'll do the treads first. So that's going to be matte black. Once again, Warpaint's Fanatic. Down a little on my wet palette. And just get it on there. Once again, I'm trying to get these done relatively quick so I can get a game of this going. So I'm not being super fancy or getting worried too much about being clean. I'm gonna have to do some fixing later, so. And I'm sure my fingers are probably pulling off a little bit of paint here and there, but that's what the touch-up process is for. I do like to get some of the underside in, or some of the underside painted in, because you're never quite sure exactly what's going to be visible on a model once it's done and you're moving it around on a table. I once came across a subreddit dedicated entirely to the work people would do painting parts of models that would be completely hidden once it was done. I forget the name of it. but just beautiful control panels and machinery and stuff like that. That would be hidden in cockpits or in gunship troop bays or stuff like that once it was done. I don't know. There's something kind of admirable about having so much attention to detail. That it extends to the strictly unnecessary. But, like I said, I'm trying to be quick here. As quick as mini painting can be. Now, considering this is my first video, I don't really know what to expect in terms of if anyone will stumble across this. If you did, and you did end up watching it, maybe putting it on in the background of something else, thank you. It's actually pretty therapeutic just sitting here talking into my phone. And I hope you get something out of it too. Even if that is just sleep. Sleep's important. Yeah. Alright. I think that one... yeah. I think that tread's good. Move on to the other one. Alright. We're getting somewhere on this. I'm definitely going to cut this video off at an hour if I don't reach a good stopping point. But I'm pretty happy happy with the progress I'm making. Got all the red in. Got all the black in. I'm using a pretty watery mixture here because there's a lot of texture to these threads, as you'd imagine. So in order to really get down into the nooks and crevices of it, has to flow pretty well. And you know what? I'm noticing that I didn't get the insides of those inside wheels. That's gonna be a pain. I wanna get that before I forget it. Those inside wheels on the back. And those will stand out a little bit if you're inspecting the model. And they're that pale gray. So I'm just gonna carefully try and get my brush in there. It is kind of a nook of the model. I don't have to be very precise here. It's not gonna be super noticeable, but I do want to get it. Because as you can see there, you can see just, well, it might be hard to see on camera, but you can see just over the top of this engine bit into that part of the, I don't know what you'd call it, the treadwell? I'm not super familiar with what the different parts of the tank tread are called. Looks like I missed some spots on this side too. Down here on the outside bottom, or inside bottom, depending on how you look at it. Got in there. Shoot, I'm sorry if I haven't been keeping it in frame. I'm not super used to this yet. First video. Doing my best here. I think that's probably good enough for now. Made some decent progress on this tank. Alright, if anyone did tune into this video, thank you very much. I will see you next time when I paint the grays, figure out what, or paint these details, go back in to hit the lights and whatever little effects I want to do. And finish touching this guy up. All right. Goodbye.